When you parry an enemy, you apply a debuff to them that lowers their impact resistance. This debuff makes it so that your attacks have more impact on them and allows you to interrupt their attacks with yours more easily. There are 3 parry related perks in the game that enhance this debuff, and they are mostly exclusive to exotics. I don't know about you guys, but as much as I find parrying a bit underrated in this game, whenever I get an exotic with parry related perks, I find it very underwhelming. But every once in a while, the Mega Hype gives me 2 exotics, and one of them is awesome, and the other one has at least one parry related perk. And I just go, whatever, I'm keeping both. Today I'm gonna be testing these perks to see how useful they actually can be. The first perk is named Counter Extension. It increases the duration of the debuff by 3 seconds. Here's how long the debuff lasts by default. Now I'm equipping an exotic with a counter extension, and the debuff should last 7 seconds now. As you can see, the perk is broken. I tried it with Hulk as well, just to make sure that the problem wasn't just Black Widow. And I even equipped a second exotic with a counter extension perk on my Black Widow to give her 2 active counter extension perks, but it didn't work anyway. The next perk is called Might Break. It makes it so that enemies take 25% more damage from any source for as long as they are affected by the parry debuff. This perk is working correctly, and the damage increase is also pretty good, to be honest. The last perk is called Impact Break, and it further reduces the enemy's impact resistance by 50% during the debuff. This one is by far the most confusing perk and the trickiest one to test. We don't have any way in the game to quantify how much impact resistance each enemy has, like impact resistance points or something like that. All we know is that they have a certain resistance to the impact of our attacks, and that resistance gets reduced when we parry them. So telling us that this perk further reduces that resistance by 50% doesn't really give us a clue of how much that is. And honestly, we've already gotten more than enough numbers and percentages to keep in mind already, and I don't think this should be another one. But hey, you know what's better than one confusing perk? 2 of that same confusing perk, and the same piece of gear. If this perk really is worth anything, then wearing this gear piece and parrying an enemy with it should take away like all of their impact resistance. It should make it so that even a slight breeze makes them stumble. So to test this perk, the first thing I had to do was get an idea of how much impact resistance an enemy loses when he gets parried normally, so that I can compare the results for parries with and without the perk active. And that's what I've been doing to this adaptoid here. I've been using Black Widow's lowest impact attacks against it to see if it's still capable of resisting to any of them even after being parried. If it does resist to any of these attacks without flinching, then equipping the gear piece with the perk and parrying it should make it so that it's unable to resist to that same attack. Here's the thing. In the end, the adaptoid didn't resist to any of my melee attacks, not even without the perk. All of them made it stumble. The only attack that didn't cause any reaction on it were pistol shots to the body. Headshots still made it flinch. And I believe that was also the case for full auto, but since that's harder to aim, I ended up getting a few headshots by accident, so it's hard to test that one. And when I finally equipped the gear piece with the perk, it didn't change anything. And even if it did, with all of my melee attacks causing a reaction on the adaptoid by default, I don't think it would be needed. Or maybe it only reduces the enemy's impact resistance for when they're trying to attack. But in that case, all we need to do is keep melee attacking the enemy so that it won't have a chance to counterattack anyway. In other words, even if this perk is working correctly, I don't think it's necessary, because either the default parry is good enough, or this perk doesn't offer enough to be useful anyway. So today we learned that only one of the three main parry related perks in the game is working properly and useful. I do think counter extension can be useful, especially when using the parry to open up more defensive enemies like prime synthoids, adaptoids, and exos, but then again, it has to work first. Might Break can be useful for the same reason, but I don't think Impact Break can be salvaged. I think it should be taken out of the game, to be honest. However, I still stand by what I said early in the video. I don't think any of these perks is exotic worthy, especially with each of them occupying one slot. Here's what I propose. Combine Counter Extension and Might Break into a single perk that extends the duration of the debuff by 4 seconds instead of 3, and make it available in Legendary and Epic Gear as well, outside of exotics. That way, this new perk will be more accessible to players in general and will make parrying more popular among the community. And maybe create new perks too, like one that increases the time window for a successful parry, and another one that increases the stun damage by 50% against a parried enemy. But that is just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think about all of this.